Archaeologists love a good mystery, but only if they can solve it. Sometimes the pieces they found just don't fit, and when that happens, they call in the scientists who are just as stumped. Our history is pretty weird, and the people who lived before us were even weirder. They left behind things we can't recreate, explain, or even understand. Some of these artifacts have loose theories, and some still as confusing as the day they were found. So, join us for today's video as we're going to look at 15 most mysterious artifacts scientists still can't explain. Number 15. The Mysterious Dagger of Kiladai. In 2021, archaeologists working in Tamil Nadu uncovered something rare while excavating what appeared to be a burial site, an iron dagger buried with a body. At first glance, it's just a rusted blade, but its context is what makes it stand out. This part of India was once home to the ancient Kiladai civilization, and although dozens of burial urns have been found nearby, none had weapons buried with them, until this one. The dagger's design suggests it wasn't made for hunting but close combat. What really shook researchers was its resemblance to weapons from the earlier Sangam period. That wasn't supposed to overlap with Kiladai at all. This one reopened old debates were the Kiladai and Sangam people connected or even part of the same cultural line. The dagger itself still holds pieces of its wooden handle, which helped carbon date the burial. It's a small artifact, but it stirred up big questions about timelines that historians thought were settled. Number 14. The Egyptian Alabaster Tablet. Nobody knows what this ancient Egyptian tablet was made for. It's round, heavy, and carved from alabaster. You'll find it in Leiden's Museum of Antiquities in the Netherlands, but don't expect any concrete answers about it. It's been dated to about 5,000 years ago. But beyond that, theories are all over the place. Some call it a ceremonial tabletop. Others think it looks like a primitive control panel. The tablet's surface is filled with carefully drilled holes, possibly for candles, maybe for holding oil. Whatever the case, it clearly served a specific purpose, and clearly required effort to create. But if it was important, why didn't we find more like it? Why did this style appear once and vanish? That's the frustrating part. It sits alone in the record. No context, no match, no explanation. And until someone stumbles on a second one, it'll stay that way. It's one of those ancient relics that refuses to fit neatly into any known category, and that's exactly why it stands out. Number 13. The Lady of the Sain. Her name's lost to history, but her face lives on. Pulled from the river Sain in the 1880s, the young woman's body showed no signs of violence. No one knew who she was, and no one came forward to claim her. At the morgue, a pathologist was struck by the calmness in her expression, so much so that he made a plaster cast of her face before burial. That mask quietly made its way through Europe and eventually inspired the design of the first CPR resuscitation dummy decades later. Her face has been kissed by millions, yet no one knows what led her to the river or how she died. What remains is a haunting, almost serene impression of a life cut short, immortalized in plaster. She's remembered only as the Lady of the Sain, with no story, no voice, just a face that continues to teach people how to save lives. Whatever her story was, it never made it into the records, but her presence hasn't faded. Number 12. The Dispilio Tablet. When the Dispilio Tablet was pulled from a lakeside site in Kastoria, Greece in 1993, it didn't look like much, just a chunk of aged wood with carvings. But carbon dating placed it at over 7,200 years old, making it one of the oldest wooden artifacts with writing ever discovered. The tablet is covered in repeating symbols, none of which match any known script from ancient Greece. That's already strange enough, but there's more. Greece is famously loud about its ancient accomplishments. If they'd invented writing this early, you'd think we'd hear about it from somewhere else, right? But no other artifact with these symbols has ever turned up. And despite modern efforts, no one's been able to translate the carvings. It could be a lost form of early writing, or something else entirely. But without more examples, there's no way to build context. It's a lone piece of a puzzle with no other pieces to connect. And for now, it stays that way. Number 11. The Enochian Language. In the 1500s, English occultist John Dee claimed he wasn't just talking to angels, he was writing down their language. Together with Edward Kelly, he recorded an entirely new system of communication, Enochian. It had its own alphabet, grammar, and syntax, fully structured and repeatable. They said it came through scrying, gazing into reflective surfaces during ritual sessions. Most dismissed the two as delusional or theatrical, but there's one part no one can quite explain: the language works. It follows grammatical rules, can be learned, and even translated to a degree. That's unusual for something supposedly received from beyond. The name Enochian comes from the biblical figure Enoch, believed to be the last human who spoke this angelic tongue before Dee and Kelly claimed to rediscover it. Whether they were channeling something real or invented it themselves, they created a fully functioning language from scratch. That alone is extraordinary. Even now, Enochian sits in that strange space between mysticism, genius, and pure mystery, just like the men who wrote it. Number 10. The Ptolemy World Map. The Ptolemy World Map is strange for a bunch of reasons. First off, it wasn't even made by Ptolemy. It showed up in a geography book he wrote around 150 CE, but most agree it was probably drawn by Agathodaman of Alexandria. The map covers what the Greco-Romans believed was the entire known world at the time. It's also where we see the earliest use of latitude and longitude, a pretty big deal. The strange part, a lot of the settlements shown on the map don't exist. Never have. Most of them are in what's now Germany, east of the Rhine. Yes, there are towns in those areas today, but they're all modern, built within the last 500 years. That leaves us with two odd options. Either the original towns were wiped out so completely we've found no trace, or the places on this ancient map are way older than anyone thought. Either way, historians don't love either explanation. Both options force us to rethink some major assumptions about ancient Europe. Number 9. The Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III. The Black Obelisk was created to brag. It lists the military victories of Assyrian king Shalmaneser III, who ruled almost 2,800 years ago. But one name carved into that stone kicked up a storm. Among the list of defeated rulers is a king called Jehu, an Israelite figure who, up to that point, had only ever been mentioned in the Bible. Alongside the name is a carved image showing this king paying tribute. Biblical archaeologists jumped at the chance to validate scripture through physical evidence, but it's not that simple. Translating names from ancient Assyrian isn't always straightforward. Some scholars argue the name isn't Jehu at all. It could be Jehu-Ahaz or another ruler with a similar name. The lines between faith and archaeology blur fast here. Still, the artifact itself is real, and the carving is clear. Someone from Israel bowed to Shalmaneser. Whether it was the biblical Jehu or not, the obelisk complicates things in all the right ways and drags history and religion into the same room. Number 8. The Tartaria Tablets. In 1961, while digging through a Neolithic site in Romania, archaeologist Nicolae Vlasa found 3 small clay tablets. They're known now as the Tartaria Tablets. 2 of them have holes, maybe for hanging, and all 3 are covered in carved symbols and animal figures. Here's the kicker. No one knows what those symbols mean. They repeat in patterns though, and that's led some language experts to believe it might be one of the world's earliest forms of writing. That's a bold claim, especially since the tablets are around 7,500 years old. If that's true, it rewrites the whole story of how writing began. Most of what we know points to Mesopotamia, not Romania, but these tablets throw a wrench in that narrative. The mystery is made worse by the fact that we've never found other examples with the same symbols. If it was a written language, it didn't spread, or it got lost. Either way, we're left with 3 slabs of fired clay that still haven't told us their full story. Number 7. The Shapira Scrolls. Back in 1883, A Jerusalem-based dealer named Moses Wilhelm Shapira claimed he'd found something game-changing, fragments of leather scrolls covered in Paleo-Hebrew text. He said they predated the Book of Deuteronomy. Scholars at the time didn't buy it. Shapira had a reputation for selling forgeries, and no one gave the scrolls much of a second look. But times change. Now some modern researchers argue the scrolls might have been real. Scholar Aydin Dershowitz has spent years reconstructing the lost texts and believes they come from the First Temple period nearly 3,000 years ago. His version of the scrolls includes an alternate Deuteronomy with new lines, even an 11th commandment, "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart." It's powerful. The problem? The original scrolls vanished in 1889 after a public lecture in England. Everything we know today is built from transcriptions and reconstructions. Whether Shapira was telling the truth or pulling another fast one, we might never know. But that's exactly why the scrolls still matter. Number 6. San Pedro Mountains Mummy. In 1934, two prospectors searching for gold in Wyoming's San Pedro Mountains blasted open a sealed cavern. Inside was something they never expected, cross-legged, perfectly preserved, and human. Just 6 inches tall, this mummified body became one of archaeology's most debated discoveries. Local Native American legends speak of little mountain people, and some see this as evidence those stories were real. Scientists did their tests and confirmed the remains were human. The skin, teeth, and even fingernails were intact. In the 1980s, X-rays showed the individual had eaten raw meat shortly before death. Officially, it's chalked up to a person born with a rare deformity who died in the 1700s and was somehow mummified naturally. But that doesn't satisfy everyone. The biggest mystery, the mummy disappeared not long after those tests. No one knows where it is now. Whether it's folklore come to life or something else entirely, the San Pedro mummy still leaves more questions than answers, and nobody's had the chance to look at it since. Number 5. The ancient Athenian well. In Athens, there's an old part of the city called Kerameikos, once used as a burial ground. In March 2020, archaeologists started digging through an ancient well there, and what they pulled out wasn't water, but something darker. At the bottom, they found 30 lead tablets etched with Greek inscriptions. Not your typical messages either. These looked more like curses. Based on what we know, the Greeks believed people who died violent or unnatural deaths could carry messages to the underworld. So they buried these cursed tablets with those bodies, hoping the spirits would deliver their anger to the gods below. Even back then, it was illegal. Athens didn't mess with the dark arts. And if that wasn't creepy enough, the lead from the tablets would have poisoned the water too. Not that ancient Greeks likely knew that part. What exactly the curses said or who they were meant for remains uncertain. But the discovery adds one more eerie chapter to the city's already complicated relationship with death. Number 4. The Balaculish Idol. Found in a peat bog in the Scottish Highlands during the 1880s, the Balaculish Idol is a wooden figure, roughly human-shaped and strangely expressive. It's about 2,500 years old, carved with care, and has quartz pebbles set where its eyes would be. Most believe it represents a female figure, maybe a goddess. Unfortunately, poor preservation methods at the time damaged it. The bog preserved it beautifully, but once exposed and dried too quickly, the figure cracked and warped. Still, even in its damaged state, it stands out. No one's quite sure what it was made for. Some guess it could be linked to Cailleach Beara, a Celtic goddess tied to storms and winter, but that's just speculation. It might have stood watch over a sacred site, or maybe it was meant to be buried from the start. Without writing or matching finds to support any theory, it's impossible to pin it down. What we do know is that this figure wasn't made casually. Someone shaped it with purpose, and we still don't know what that purpose was. Number 3. The Manoan Snake Goddess. Discovered in 1903 at the Palace of Knossos, the Manoan Snake Goddess has become an icon of ancient Crete. She's bold, faience crafted, bare-chested, arms raised, and snakes in both hands, or at least that's how she looks today. The problem is that the version we see was heavily restored by British archaeologist Arthur Evans, and that restoration might have added more fantasy than fact. Scholars can't even agree on what she's holding. Some say they're not snakes at all, but cords or ropes. Others believe she represents a powerful deity, perhaps linked to fertility or nature. But there's no clear parallel in other Manoan art, and no inscriptions to explain her. She could be a priestess, a goddess, or something else entirely. Her expression is calm but commanding. The craftsmanship is detailed, but context is lacking. After more than a century of study, we still don't know who she is or what role she played in Manoan culture. She's famous, but still a mystery. Number 2. The Divj Babe Flute. In a Slovenian cave called Divj Babe, a piece of a cave bear femur was found in 1995, and it instantly started a global argument. The bone has a series of punctures along its length, and the spacing is oddly flute-like. It was found at a site once occupied by Neanderthals, which makes the find even more compelling. If the holes were intentionally made, this could be the oldest known musical instrument, dating back over 50,000 years. But here's the catch. Some researchers believe the holes were made by animal teeth. Others disagree, pointing out that the punctures don't align with known bite patterns and instead look like they were carved using tools. That's where the debate has stalled. Even now, music historians, anthropologists, and archaeologists can't agree. If it is a flute, it suggests Neanderthals weren't just capable of survival, they were making music. But if it's just the result of scavenging teeth, the mystery vanishes. For now, it remains one of prehistory's biggest what-ifs. Number 1. The Isango Bone. Found near Lake Edward in the 1950s, the Isango Bone is one of the oldest objects ever uncovered that might show signs of early mathematical thought. It's about 20,000 years old, carved from the fibula of a baboon, and marked with a series of notches running down its sides in seemingly deliberate groupings. At one end of the bone, a piece of quartz is fixed, possibly used for engraving or sharpening. The patterns have baffled researchers ever since. Some argue they show an understanding of multiplication or prime numbers. Others think they might mark lunar phases, making it a candidate for the earliest known calendar. Then again, some scholars believe we're reading too much into it, that these could be tally marks for something simpler, like tracking food or trade. No one's sure. The quartz, the marks, the precision, it all suggests intentionality, but the reason behind it is lost. It sits as a quiet fragment of prehistoric life that refuses to explain itself. If you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.